All right, welcome to another edition of the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. My name is Randy Zellea from backsportspage.com, and thank you for making us a small part of your week. I hope you've enjoyed your time during our little hiatus. I got married. Boom, look at that thing. I got a big, if you're for those watching on video, I got the ring holding up with the wedding ring on. If you're listening to audio, you don't see the ring. So this week's show, before we get into this week's show, wanted to give you a quick follow-up. We do have some great guests going on for the second half of the season. You don't want to miss out. I'm not going to spoil names. A nice mix of established talent and indie talent as well. Don't forget to follow the show. We are on Linktree at the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. We are on Instagram. We are on Twitter, Cut Wrestling BSP. We are on Facebook as well. And our shows are available on all podcast platforms, excluding also on YouTube. Give us a 5-star review. Let us know what you like, what we're doing here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. All right. You guys saw this week's guest, Vince Russo, former WWE creative head writer for WWE, for Impact Wrestling, WCW, former WCW champion. He made sure I addressed that in the beginning of the interview. And we learned a lot about Vince, and I got a good handle about him. And if I sounded like I was a little bit of a fan or a mark for him, it's because I really do appreciated the work. The Attitude Era is something that I grew up on. And what his story, whether you like him or you don't, you can't knock the success he has. And look, people have the right to feel the way they feel and even develop a little bit of an ego. I'm not saying that Vince had an ego, but listen, when you have success, you have the right to be proud of it. And Vince Russo is a very proud man. He's done a lot of great things for this business. Sometimes is the criticism valid? I'll let you decide whether or not, but this week's guest is Vince Russo, and he has a lot of great brand. You can follow him on the vincerussobrand.com. He is all over Instagram, all over Twitter, he's all over different social platforms, podcasting platforms. Check out his work, Vince Russo Brand. And I think you've had enough of me rambling on and on and on. It's good to see everybody back here. I'd like to thank the crew as always, Jamie Rush, Alyssa Dukas, Jonathan Mary, Andrew Fiume, of course, the great director, makes us all look good. Alexis Rodriguez, and so much more, the rest of the crew. We appreciate it. Right now, it is time for Vince Russo, bro. All right, special interview time right now on the Cut. With me now, former creative director of WWE, WCW, and Impact Wrestling, or TNA, back in the time that he was there, Vince Russo. And Vince, I got to say, absolute pleasure. I remember being a teenager reading WWE Magazine, reading your work not only as yourself, but as Vic Venom. And I got to tell you this again. This is I'm a I guess you want to say a mark for the behind the scenes aspect or how things produced and see how things are built. And I consider this an absolute pleasure. And I thank you for the time.
Well, listen, when you give out my credentials, I appreciate too when you add a former WCW world champion. So can you just go ahead and say that, please?
Okay. Former WCW champion and the man who slayed Goldberg. How's that?
Thank you very much. I'll give you applause for that. There you go. What is going on, Randy? It's nice to meet you. It's nice to be here, my friend.
Hey, listen, this is an absolute pleasure, like I said, and like we were just discussing before we started. I wanted to listen to a couple episodes of your show, and I also listened to some of detractors of you, and I'm trying to figure out exactly where a lot of the hate for you comes from, because I guess when people are successful, it rubs people the wrong way. I think that's what, and people who are pretty sure about what they do. So I wanted to get your take before we dive into you and your career about like the perception of that you feel that you get sometimes.
No, I think the hate comes from is crystal clear of where it comes from. I mean, make no bones about it, Randy. I was an entertainment guy. And I grew up on the WWF. I grew up on Vince McMahon Sr. And in the Northeast, wrestling was entertainment. That's what I grew up on. So when I started writing for the WWE, my brand was 100% entertainment. The wrestling matches themselves were 4 or 5 minutes, and it was all storyline driven and character driven. Unfortunately, the small percentage with the loudest voices, those are the internet dirt sheets and dirt sheet marks. That's not the type of wrestling they like. They literally like 15, 20-minute fake fights. They don't like entertainment. They don't like sex. So the purist, that very small audience, and those are the people that watch today, that very small audience, they want wrestling. My brand of wrestling was not wrestling heavy. That's where it comes from.
Yeah, and I also too, I go back and remember I was 16, 17 years old when the Attitude Era was kicking into gear. I'm 41 now. It's amazing on how the time changes. Right now, the industry is sort of like on a hot swing. You have WWE, you have AEW, you have Impact, you have MLW, you have a lot of different and you have more platforms where we didn't have the same opportunity during the Monday Night Wars. I liked the way you were booking wrestling back at the time, because Mick Foley said it best. Wrestling was more of a variety show. You may not have liked what was going on here, but you might like the next segment. We have something totally different here. And I think it's something that the industry has sort of gone away from. I know WWE went away from it a long time ago when they started focusing on 5 or 6 guys at a time, and the undercard would never have any real storyline to do. I know that you were one of the guys who liked to book something for everybody.
Right.
So if Steve Blackman was feuding with Val Venus on the opening match of a pay-per-view, they at least had a story on why they were fighting in the first match.
Right, exactly. It's funny because I got my platforms up, russosbrand.com, patreon.com/Russo TWC. And it's so funny, Randy. Randy, I'm assuming you're a sports fan.
Yes.
So I'm gonna lay out this analogy to you that is very simple. I'm going back now and I'm breaking down all the Attitude Era shows hour by hour. That's what I'm doing now on my russosbrand.com. And I am purposely looking at the length of matches. Bro, we're talking 3.5 minutes, 4 minutes, 2:45, 3:15. Bro, the matches were under 5 minutes. You fast forward, bro, to 2021, you have 15, 20-minute match after 15, 20-minute match. And obviously the ratings and the audience has gone way down. So what I relate that to is, bro, the Braves just won the World Series. Right. When Snitker gets ready for 2022, what is he going to do? He's going to look at what the Braves did in 2021. We were very successful in 2021. We were world champions. We need to continue along that path. Bro, they've got a blueprint. They see through the Attitude Era. It was short matches, because if you have long matches on your show, the only people that are going to watch are hardcore wrestling fans. The blueprint is there, but rather than follow the blueprint, they have gone to the extreme. And then you wonder why wrestling has gone from 10 million people to 1.5 million. Bro, it's no surprise. It's right in front of their eyes in black and white.
Well, you were booking WWE and even WCW to a point back in the Attitude Era, Monday Night War era. Do you think from Vince's perspective, Vince a lot better than I did. I've met Vince McMahon one time when they had the restaurant, and I met him outside, just said hello. That was my extent of ever talking with him, ever. But you know him 10 million times better than all of us. Do you think after you left back in October of 1999, the reason why he has put a long, big staff of writers is concerned is because he didn't want to put the trust into just one or two people who might
Yes.
get up and leave. And I
1000%. Yes.
okay,
1000% correct. Yes.
and do you think because he did that, he's not only trying to protect himself, but by doing that, he's bringing comedy writers in, he's bringing movie writers in, he's not bringing in people who are tapped into the product. Do you think that obviously that hurts the product by trying to get these guys who are wrestlers? Because I've listened to John Moxley and Chris Jericho and some of these other guys come out and say they took away the fun of being a professional wrestler.
Yeah. Yeah. Bro, you are dead on. Bro, back in the Attitude Era, there were two writers. It was me and Ed Ferrara, period, end of story. There was nobody else involved. Ed and I would get together and we would write the show from start to finish, and then we would present it to Vince and we would walk Vince through it. When we left, again, for the reasons that you just stated, what he did, bro, was he had a structure that worked and was very simple. But now what he has done is he's created layers upon layers upon layers upon layers, writing teams. This one reports to that one, who reports to this one, who eventually gets to Vince down the line. He has created a structure that does not work. The structure is broken. The system is broken. It does not work, and he's not doing anything to try to change that.
And listen, you being a New York sports guy, I know that you're a Giants fan. And I'm assuming a Yankee fan or a Mets fan.
I'm a Giants fan because my father was a New York Giants fan from the Polo Grounds. I'm a Giants fan.
Okay, so I will say one thing from being a New York sports fan like yourself: the New York Giants and the New York Yankees have an expectation level from the front office, and that message is from the top all the way down to the minor league players. So for the Giants football team, for the practice squad, everybody knows what the expectation level is.
Mhm.
The Yankees a little bit more structured than the Giants. But then you have a team like the Jets and the New York Mets where it's chaos in the front office and it reflects onto the field. I love Tony Khan and I love the effort that AEW is putting out. Not everything is a home run, not everything is a gold record, but they've definitely won the popular vote. My question to you, using the analogies that we just said, does it have to change on top for both major promotions?
1000%. I coined a phrase just today. I'm going to start referring to Vince McMahon and Tony Khan as the Abbott and Costello of professional wrestling.
Okay.
Bro, listen, Tony Khan has said over and over and over and over, I'm catering to a specific fan base. Bro, from a business point of view, that's stupid. You've already got that fan base. That fan base is not going anywhere. The object is to grow that fan base. The only way you're going to grow that fan base is of what you said earlier. You've got to have a little something for everybody. If you don't, you're going to continue to have that same fan base week after week, month after month, year after year. My objective, bro, was to get as many eyeballs on whatever show I was writing by any means necessary. It's almost like you had this 2-hour block of television. The goal is to get as many people to watch that show as possible. That was our mentality. That was my mentality everywhere I went. I mean, my God, we had 2 million people watching Impact.
Yeah, there was a time where Impact was the talk was before Hogan and Bischoff got there. This was the team, and this was the team that was going to challenge Vince McMahon. And I'm not an inner workings type of guy who knows everything that was going on, but from a fan perspective, from that point in time, I remember watching Impact and they're saying, man, they're so close. They're on the cusp and they're doing it with guys we never heard of. And then when Hogan and Bischoff came in, and I like Eric, I've done stuff with Eric before. I think he's a good guy. He's always treated me nice. If you treat me nice, I'm always going to treat you the same way you treat me. That's how I've always been. But I remember watching Hogan, and all of a sudden I'm watching the same guys who I watched 10 years ago. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, PD Williams, AJ Styles, Samoa Joe, Austin Aries. These are the guys who I want to watch right now. I don't want to watch Hall and Nash anymore. If unless they're going to do something that's going to help raise the level of these guys we've never heard of before and help bring them to the next level, I don't want to see the Dudleys right now. I don't want to see those guys. And they had the right veterans at that point, Kurt Angle, Christian, who were working with the AJs and the Samoa Joes and those guys to get to that level. And you were there at that time. How did that not work when Hogan and Bischoff got
Bro, I'll tell you what really didn't work. And this is what people do not discuss. And this is what people do not talk about. And this was really the root of the problem. First of all, bro, let me say, Eric Bischoff and myself have never gotten along. On 2 occasions, we were forced to work together. And bro, it was oil and water. We're just 2 completely different types of people. We're never going to work cohesively together. And Eric does not like me. I don't dislike Eric at all, and I'm not going to badmouth Eric. But here's what happened, bro. This is really what happened, bro. Of course, Eric and Hulk come, and of course, Hulk wants to bring all his boys over. Bro, that's wrestling. All those wrestlers now are in Tony Khan's ear doing the same thing. Bro, so-and-so was released. You need to sign so-and-so. You need to sign this one. You need to sign that one. All of a sudden, Tony Khan's got this roster and he's got no room for all these people. Right. That's the wrestling business, bro. It's the buddy system. You get your buddies in. Here's where the problem was, bro. The problem was Dixie Carter originally wanted to hire Hulk. Well, of course, Hulk and Eric played Dixie a little bit, and all of a sudden it was a package deal. Dixie had she had no interest in signing Eric Bischoff. Nothing against Eric, but there wasn't really a need for him at that point. But they worked the buddy system. Here's what happened, bro, and this was really the downfall. Bro, Dixie couldn't afford to pay both of them. I mean, it's that simple. The both of those guys were making a lot of money. And the only way she was able to pay them was to take funds from everywhere else. Right. So all of a sudden, bro, you're not advertising, you're not marketing, you're not doing PR. All of a sudden, you're taking away from the other vital organs of the company to pay these 2 guys. And I think eventually that's what caught up with Dixie. I think that was the key issue, not so much of them bringing their boys in, because, bro, that's the wrestling business, man.
Okay. That's something I probably wouldn't have thought of. Again, from the fan perspective, you're like, okay, well, you just went from having solid matches every single week with these young stars to now watching Sean Morley back on TV and the Nasty Boys. And so that's a perspective I'm glad I got to hear. I want to go back in time a little bit here with you. I did not know until I heard recently that you started back when your wrestling fandom, you sort of incorporated it with your video store. You used to run a video store back in the day. This is correct?
Yes, 2 video stores I owned, yes.
What was that like, sort of, pre-breaking into the industry, getting on the radio, really just having people like you were sort of promoting, but back then you were able to get the wrestlers to come to the video store back in the day. What was that like for you, sort of making all of that happen?
Well, bro, I mean, I was able to get the wrestlers back in the video store because I paid for them. I mean, it was not cheap. I went directly through WWE and I paid a handsome penny. I had Jake there. I had Demolition there when they were champions. I had Bruce Beefcake there when he was red hot. But the promotion was great for my store. I mean, literally, bro, thousands of people came out. This is when wrestling was hot. And, one of the people that, caught wind of all this was a guy by the name of John Arezzi, who was already doing wrestling stuff. Now, at that time, Blockbuster was coming into play, and I knew I was in trouble. My stores were going to be out of business. I could not compete. And that's when I, more or less formed a partnership with Arezzi, because I needed to do something else, bro, because I knew my video business at that time was going to be short-lived.
And what came of that was you eventually were able to get on the air in the New York market, and you were selling advertisements. You also tried to do a newsletter as well. Man, it's amazing on how many hats you wore. And, you and I talked a little bit through Twitter. I manage a bunch of writers too. And, you worked on a lot on the WWE magazine, the WWF magazine. What was it like sort of making that transition going into, magazine writing and managing a staff? And, I had heard, I think the most recent story about this was from Bruce Pritchard's show on how he really liked on how you were interactive with the talent, incorporating it into the magazine. What was that like, sort of taking over the magazine and sort of putting your own twist with it?
Yeah, no, bro, I couldn't believe it. When I started on the magazine, they were fabricating every story. And I was like, what do you do? Like, all you have to do is go to a show. You've got access to everybody there. Why are you making all this shit up? It made no sense to me. And that's where I started. I would write the stories, but I would involve the talent in the stories. So that's why when I made the transition over to television, I already had a relationship with most of these guys through my magazine work. They knew me. We had worked together. So it was a very, very, very easy transition for me from magazine writing to TV.
And not only that, so what you're telling me right now is all those years when I was a kid, back when I was 9, 10 years old, when I was reading WWE magazine, and I would see interviews with wrestlers.
1,000%, bro. Which blew my mind. I when I walked in and they told me this was how they did it, I didn't understand it.
You just scarred my childhood. I don't know if you just there's a piece of me that just died. But look, I will tell you that I remember again reading the old Raw magazines and stuff like that. I remember, in fact, there was one article that I remember you wrote that it was significant enough for me to remember. It was, you did an article about when Shawn Michaels, after WrestleMania 14, Shawn Michaels went away, and he had just come back at the Meadowlands, and you had written a piece, and I don't remember what issue or anything else like that. I just remember that you said that like everybody was happy that Shawn went home, that wasn't sure if it was right bringing him back. And then he came out that night at the Meadowlands and he got a standing ovation, and you just saw it. And to me, that article hit such a spot for me. So much that I can remember it. Like, well, if I can remember it right off the cuff like that, it hits a spot for you. I have to ask, when you were writing, you had such a big window of an audience. How were you able to manage that, and how were you able to sort of take people on that ride by reading the magazine?
Bro, it's funny because I think I still have it to this day. And bro, everybody in the business, the majority, 98%, bro, they're in this wrestling bubble. And they see everything through the eyes of wrestling. Literally, they live in this make-believe world where the rules of the real world don't apply. When I came into the wrestling business, bro, I was a fan, but I wasn't a Mark fan. I was a WWE fan like I was a San Francisco Giant fan, like I was a Rocky fan, like I was a Batman 66 fan. It was one of many things that I was a fan of. So I never went into the business as a mark. I kind of went in as a casual fan. And my entire career up until today, I have kept my finger on the pulse of what does the casual fan want? What does the casual television viewer want? What are they looking for? Because, bro, I could tell you it is 100% different than what's in the wrestling bubble. But in the wrestling bubble, bro, you have the same people for decades upon decades upon decades that are just regurgitating the same stuff over and over, and they've forgotten all about the television audience. What do you have to do to draw in regular people? I was honed into that, bro, because I knew that's where the masses were.
But it's funny too. We say that, and I have a lot of friends who were wrestling fans. So like we were in college, we would watch Raw, and we was can't miss television. And AEW has sort of sparked some of my older friends' interests who now have kids, and now their kids are watching it, and they're more interested in watching AEW. But like what we were talking before with Vince on the writing team and Tony writing the show, trying to appeal to an audience, I almost feel like Vince, like you just said, doesn't have in touch of the audience right now. But Tony, if Tony is doing absolutely everything with creative, the fear of burnout is something that I know that would worry me as a fan. And I know he's trying to not have the Bucks and Omega and Cody as much as in control as they. You hear all these reports online. If it's, of course, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true. And that's my biggest fear as a fan who's been enjoying watching AEW. That you fear for Tony burning out and not having the right people with him. I wanted to get your thoughts on that,
bro. It's ego. I'm telling you, bro, it's ego, and Vince McMahon and Tony Khan have ego, bro. Listen, I don't know Tony Khan from a hole in the wall. Okay, obviously, I read about him, I comment on him. I even have a special show on Patreon called Better Call Khan, because my greatest entertainment in wrestling these days is Tony Khan's interviews. Because first of all, he'll let anybody interview him. Like all this guy does is interviews. And bro, I got to be honest with you. I've never seen anybody put themselves over to the extent of Tony Khan. I always say, if I was saying the things that Tony Khan says, oh my God, bro, if people dislike me now, literally there would be a bounty on my head. This guy just puts himself over to nauseam. Everything is me, myself, and I did this and I did that. Bro, that is 100% ego. And here's the bottom line, bro. They've been in existence for 2 years. The very first show they did was 1.4 million people. They've never reached that again. In 2 years, they've never reached that again. Do you know why, bro? I'll tell you exactly why. Tony Khan is not a television writer. There's a big difference, bro, between Booker of the Year, a guy that's going to book 4-star matches, and a guy that knows how to write television, that's going to keep the viewer hooked, and that's going to build that audience week after week after week. Tony Khan has zero experience in television writing. So what is he doing? He's maintaining an audience that he already has that will watch wrestling as long as wrestling appears in the marquee. But he'll never grow that audience because he doesn't know how to get to television viewers. And he doesn't want the help. I never got a phone call. I could tell Tony Khan in a heartbeat how to get casual viewers and how to increase. Not that I want a job, or I would never take a job. I would consult. I could tell him in a minute, Tony, you need to do A, B, C, D if you want to increase those numbers. My phone hasn't rung once. That tells me the guy wants to do everything. He thinks he's great at what he does. But unfortunately, bro, the way he's doing it, there's a ceiling.
I wanted to transition back to something that we were discussing earlier with your time with WWE, and I definitely not disagreeing with what you're saying about Tony. For you, I read your book, and I had to ask about your transition from WWE to WCW, and you talked about how difficult it was, on how Vince sort of emotionally and physically sort of just drained you out. And I guess it's I'm a stepdad now, so for me, my priorities have changed. I'm not at the Giants every single week like I used to be. I find it more rewarding to be at the kids' games and stuff like that. For you, your family was your number one priority. Did you feel when you made that transition that it was just not for you from a mental standpoint, but it was also for your family as well?
You know what, bro? No, I can't say that. I mean, I really can't say that because at that time, bro, my kids were very young and I had to uproot my family. That's not good, bro, for any family. That's very difficult when your kids were young. But bro, here's what happened. You know, bro, I knew within a matter of a month that this was going to be a disaster. Okay. Bro, the reality of it is, I lived in Atlanta for 9 years. I hated Atlanta. I hated everything about it. I had a lot of scars from Atlanta. But, bro, the reason I stayed there 9 years was I couldn't move my kids again. I was not going to so, bro, I literally sucked it up and lived in a place where I did not fit. And there were so many bad memories because I could not put my family through a move like that again.
Yeah, and I thought when you originally said that you knew it was going to blow up, I thought you were talking about WCW, but not the family
Oh
side.
no, bro, it's kind of funny, man, because I swear to you, bro, it was in the first couple of weeks that I started there when the AOL Time Warner merger happened. And bro, as soon as that merger happened, you felt things were different. It's almost like there was no longer any focus whatsoever on WCW. It was almost like, bro, I would not be surprised if during the negotiations, they came to the agreement that wrestling was not going to be on their network. Because, bro, as soon as that merger happened, you could feel a change.
I remember watching back at that point, and I remember being at the Meadowlands for the show where I guess that those first couple days that you announced that you were leaving and going to WCW. I was at that show, I guess, the following day, and I said, one of two things is going to happen. I said WCW is either going to implode or Vince is going to turn it around. And I remember, I guess, Jeff did the pay-per-view the next night, showed up on Nitro, and I know, and one of the things that people don't remember, seem to forget, that if it wasn't for you working with WWE, Chris Jericho would never have been in WWE because you were one of the big proponents of pushing to get him there.
Bro, let me tell you something. If you were at that Meadowlands show, bro, that show was written. Me and Ed wrote the Meadowlands show, but obviously we couldn't go there. In that main event, we had Jericho beating The Rock. And bro, that would have skyrocketed Jericho if done correctly. Bro, they changed that. And they had Rock go over. And bro, it took them 2 years to get Jericho in that spot that he would have been in had he beaten The Rock that night. So they changed the finish, and it literally took them another 2 years to get Jericho where we would have had him that night.
What's amazing now too was when you went to WCW, you see, and this is something I've heard Paul Heyman say, and being a sports fan too. After a little while, you realize your core group of guys are guys that you sooner or later you just have to move on from. Like the New York Giants motto: it's better. They always like to let go of a guy 1 year too soon than it is to 1 year too late.
Right.
I appreciated when you were in WCW that you wanted to have the younger guys, at that time, the Benoits, the Guerreros. You wanted to get those guys to that level. But I guess the wrestling fans at the time, or even some of the established stars like Luger's and the Stings, and there was a way of obviously integrating those guys up to that level. But we saw that you were trying to do that. You can only watch Sting and Nash for so many times. Guys like Guerrero and Benoit and Perry Saturn, who eventually made that jump while you were on, I guess, that hiatus before you came back in 2000. They weren't getting that opportunity to show what they can do, and they eventually went to Vince's TV, and they were able to do it. what was your mentality when you first got to WCW? Did you come in with a plan by looking at that roster and saying, this is the guys we need to sort of push forward? How are we going to do that? Or was it one of those things where let's just see what they have? And
Nah, bro, absolutely had a plan. And bro, I was thinking of WCW, and I was thinking of their future. And I was thinking exactly what you're saying, bro. I'll never forget it, bro. Like a couple of weeks before I started on the job at WCW, the main event was Hogan versus Flair. And bro, these guys were way past their prime, and this match just exposed the both of them badly. And I knew these guys are legends. They're going to be a big part of the show, but I have to come up with a story to put them in the right position. They can't be just two wrestlers on the roster. They've got to be in a special role. So I gotta create that roll through story, and then I gotta start getting these younger guys in place. So there was definitely a plan in place when I got there, bro. I'll be honest with you. You know, paranoid is the number one sickness in professional wrestling, and the Flairs and the Hogans and all those guys thought I was trying to put them to pastor, which I was not. I was trying to get them positioned correctly. So they got in the ear of management. And then, you know, which was not to my surprise at all. That's when management said, oh, we're going to go in another direction and we want you to be part of a committee. And I said, no, thanks. That's not what I signed up for. And that's not what my contract says. And that's when I went home. So at the end of the day, bro, I was trying to do what was best for those guys. But the paranoia sunk in, and they thought I was trying to write them off of TV, which I was not.
And then when you came back in 2000 working with Bischoff, you already had a depleted roster. You didn't really have as much as you would like to have worked with at that point in time with no direction. Yeah. So real quick, I've got to throw this in here before I got to have a little bit of fun too. Impact Wrestling, TNA Impact. I feel like right now, because it's WWE and AEW, the Impact is really not getting the love for the effort that their product has been putting out. I think me personally, I've been enjoying watching their show. I wanted to get your take, you being as close to that organization as you were, how you feel the product has transitioned from the Dixie Carter era to where they are now.
Well, bro, I'll be honest with you. Like, I have not watched Impact in a very, very, very long time. But, bro, like, when you're in the business, it's all about protecting your spot. And it's all about keeping people that you know are better than you out. You do everything to keep them out so you could protect your spot. Bro, I was successful because I let Ed Ferrara in. You know, Ed Ferrara, bro, you know, was writing Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, was writing Weird Science, you know, had written movies and television. I should have been scared to death that Ed Ferrara was going to take my job. No, I knew Ed Ferrara would make me better. I knew Ed Ferrara would teach me. I knew Ed Ferrara would make the product better. That's not how it works, bro, because the same thing with Impact. Who's running this show over there? What's his name? Scott D'Amore.
Yeah.
Bro, I worked with Scott D'Amore for many, many, many years. My phone hasn't rung. Scott D'Amore has not called me and said, Vince, how in God's name did you get 2 million viewers? And like I said, bro, I don't want a job. I'm never leaving this house. This is my job. These people behind me, this is my job. I ain't going nowhere, bro. You couldn't pay me enough money to go nowhere. But if you want to get on the phone with me, if you want me to watch these shows, if you want me to critique, I will help you. My phone hasn't rung. So it's like, again, bro, you got a guy sitting here that drew 2 million fans to Impact. Nobody has said, Vince, How were you able to do that? Because I would gladly tell you, bro, Scott D'Amore is a friend. So I would gladly, Scott, this is how we did it. No, bro, because that's how the business is. And bro, a lot of the good people are kept out because they're threats to other people. And that's why you're getting a very subpar product, bro.
Can't argue that. I want to have a little bit of fun with you since I know that you're a New York Giants fan. They just lose on Monday night to Kansas City. Another tough Monday Night Football game. Do you see the light at the end of the tunnel for this team, or is this going to be a management overhaul coming for the
Bro, I got to tell you, man, I don't know how this happened, but there was a time in my life when I was way into every sport. I mean, bro, I was there when Phil Simms was winning Super Bowls. Bro, I was a huge ABA New York Nets fan, Dr. J. I mean, I'm, huge. I was a huge hockey fan at one point. Bro, I swear, I got to tell you, I've really stopped following everything but baseball. Like, baseball is my sport. That is my number one. I'm totally invested in the Giants. But, bro, I have not watched one single NFL game this year.
Wow, okay.
Not a single game, bro. I don't know what it is, bro. But over the years, I just lost my interest in those other sports.
It's funny, as you can see behind, I have all my credentials and all the stuff that I did over with the NFL and the NBA and with the baseball and everything else like that. And, I remember the connection I had with it was with my dad. It was watching the Giants on Sunday afternoons was like the best thing in the world. And now I do it with my stepkids. And, I covered the team for 11 seasons. And Eli was running for his life because of that offensive line for most of them. But, but I got to tell you, though, like, I think, I watch a lot of wrestling with my boys. And I got to tell you that the kids, if I try to explain to them the stuff that I know with wrestling, they just, the 7-year-old and a 10-year-old won't grasp it, but they still love watching. And I think,
see, bro, with me, bro, I was such a sports fanatic, bro. My kids were never into sports. I had what you're talking about with my dad. Me and my dad still are on the phone talking about the Giants every single day. Bro, my own kids were never into sports. I think if they were, I would have kept that connection. My kids weren't into wrestling. My kids didn't like wrestling. My kids didn't watch wrestling. They were just never into it, bro. And I think that's how I kind of lost interest over the years.
Yeah, and I think, but also you also have to look at the products too. You look at the way the game of the NFL has changed. The NFL football game, the way they present their game is not. It's not what it was 10 years ago. The NBA, forget about it. Basketball is my first love, and the NBA is a little bit of a joke. I came up with a formula on how to fix the whole NBA, and everyone laughs at me because of my writers, especially laugh at me because they think that today's NBA is the greatest thing ever, and I'm just like, oh, you have no idea.
Right?
You have no idea.
Yeah.
But being where you were with WWE, and I still get to ask one fun question about one of the storylines you wrote. But being where you were in professional wrestling for as long as you have, and now being armchair quarterbacking, you have an audience, you get to talk about it. I don't want to say without any consequence, but you're following your passion and being able to critique. Looking back at everything you accomplished, what are some of the positives that you were able to take away from your career and that you're still able to share with the audience today?
Bro, I got to be honest with you, and this is so hard for people to grasp. Bro, my dream and my ambition was not to get in the wrestling business. What I really wanted to do was get into radio. I loved radio, bro, to this day. Now radio, I might leave my house for a radio job today. I got into wrestling because I needed a job, bro. I mean, like you said, my video stores were going out of business. I had a couple of kids and like, oh my God, what am I going to do next? Bro, it was always a job to me. That's all it was. I mean, I have a job now of podcasting. It's no different than when I was writing for any one of those companies. It really was a job for me. And bro, that is so difficult for people to understand. I did not eat, breathe, sleep, crap professional wrestling. I went to work every day and woke up every day and did the best job I possibly could. So when I look at it today, I know what it takes. I know what it takes to be successful. And that's why, bro, I am not a fan of today's wrestling. I only watch Raw because I get paid to watch Raw. That's the only reason. I ain't watching AEW. I'm not watching anything else. I get paid to watch Raw, so I'm going to watch Raw. But bro, here's what bothers me. This is what bothers me more than anything. I never really critique individuals or storylines. That's all subjective. Some people are going to love a storyline. You're going to have half of the people are going to hate it. Here's what I critique, bro, and here's what I cannot stand, and it drives me crazy, and I will cut a promo on everybody. Effort. When I look at Raw on Monday night and I'm like, bro, you wrote that show in 15 minutes. I mean, let's face it. You put 15 minutes of, I can't stand that, bro, because as a wrestling fan, I deserve better. And that's what drives me nuts. I know what it takes. I know the blood, the sweat, the tears, the agonizing over the script and the promo, thinking about it in the freaking shower. I know what it takes. I put on Raw and they literally are sleepwalking through that show. And that's the part of it, bro, that it really disgusts me. It disgusts me because I say to myself, do you guys leave Raw slapping each other's backs on what a great show that was? Like, is anybody doing that? Do you guys really think what you're putting on television is good? Bro, the reason why it's not good is because the effort from creative is not there. It's not the effort of the boys in the ring. They will always bust their butts. It's not that. It's the machine that's feeding them the creative. They're just going through the motions, bro, and that's why the popularity has worn down.
I can't disagree with that. I can't disagree with that at all. My last question for you, and I told you I teased it with being a storyline question, is right before you left WWE, you did a storyline with Test and Stephanie. I'm sure someone's asked you about this. Nobody knew where everyone claims that nobody knew where that story was going to go. That was your baby, that Test and Stephanie were to get married. What was the final plan for that storyline? I believe
Tess was going to leave her at the altar. And at that point, Tess was going to turn heel. I believe that was the story that we had in place at the time.
Okay, because everybody and their brothers said that they had no idea what it was, all in your head, and
yeah,
they turned chicken shit into chicken salad.
Yeah,
and so Vince, listen, it's 45 minutes. Been so gracious with your time. I can't let you know how grateful I am for it. Thank you so much for coming on The Cut and being able to spend some time with me.
I really appreciate that, bro. Thanks for having me, man.
All right, thank you. We'll be right back here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast. All right, that was Vince Russo here. Lots to unload there. Leave your comments on social media and on YouTube. We really appreciate the time that you guys give us every single time we post a new show. Thank you for that. You guys are going to like our next few guests, I promise. Hey, guys, don't forget to follow the show on all of our social media platforms and, of course, on YouTube and all podcast platforms. Special thanks to Andrew Fiume and the rest of the crew here at the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast and backsportspage.com. My name is Randy Zellea, and we will see you next time here on the Cut Pro Wrestling Podcast.